Hi, my name is Greg Vesley, and I want to welcome you to Perspective, where we're giving encouraging words and sharing real life stories. Today's show is entitled The Struggle is Real. I know many of us have faced different storms in life. Maybe we've come out of a storm or we were entering into a storm, but it seems like today that we're all in the same storm, but maybe in different boats. And in those boats, maybe we're in the boat of uncertainty. Maybe we're in the boat of struggling with finances or relationships or even in our marriages. But no matter what, today we're facing the same storm, but we may be in different boats. The thing is, as we're in these boats and we're going through the storm, sometimes we don't know where the life raft is, or really who we can trust or have come alongside us to help us during these times. And as we go through them, a lot of times worry and fear sets in. The Bible says in Matthew 6:34, it says, "Do not worry about tomorrow, for tomorrow has enough to worry about itself, but to live every day in its fullest with Christ." Even though we know these things, sometimes those things still set in. And we need people to come alongside us to encourage us, to point us to the right perspective. Who's God's perspective? Because sometimes in the midst of the storm, we're watching what's going on around us in the storm, and we're looking in the boat with the trials that we're going through, and all of a sudden, things feel like that they're crushing in on us. When we really need someone to point us to the right perspective. I have with me guest Craig Oviatt. He is in charge of the Salem Oregon Dream Center. He is no stranger to seeing people struggle or even with trials of his own. Today, he'll be sharing how they are coming alongside people in their community that are struggling, that are going through these storms, and how they're meeting them exactly where they're at and meeting them in a way that's tangible. He will also be sharing with us some key factors that may help us as we're going through our own struggles. So let's go ahead and go to our show with Craig Oviatt. Thank you for tuning in. Craig, share with us what's going on in West Salem. Share about yourself and your ministry.
Well, Dream Center, Salem Dream Center, it started almost 16 years ago. And it was when a group of friends got tired of talking about problems and that we saw, when we got tired of talking about making a difference, we decided to be a difference. And so we looked around, where could we go and have an impact? And we found this community that we're based in, which is Edgewater. And at that time, it had one of the highest crime rates in the city. Poverty was, the majority of people lived at or below poverty. The kids were failing in school. And when I say that, the middle school, which is right down the street, had the highest dropout rate in the state. It was just a place of a lot of darkness, or gangs, violence. And so we decided we're going to move in. And so we decided to do it. And our philosophy was love people until they ask why and never stop. So that was the idea, was just to love people and to get out of God's way and do exactly what they needed, not what we wanted to do. And so that's how it started, and it's continued to grow. We started a free medical clinic, which has become its own entity because it became so big. We had a homeless outreach, which became, once again, so big, it became its own entity, and they're both thriving. And then our focus here, and I'm sitting right now in our learning center, is education, mentorship, and food security for families and children that are living in generational poverty. So we stand in the gap, so to speak. We help the kids, we mentor them and let them know how much value they have in this world. And then that helps them to dream. And then we equip them at our learning center. And we also equip the parents as well. We have adult education here as well.
So Craig, that is great. We have this video that you put together that I like to share with the audience, just kind of highlighting exactly what you said and what you guys do as a ministry. So let's watch together.
Hi, my name's Renee,
And I'm Craig.
and together we're the directors of Salem Dream Center.
Dream Center started in 2004 with a desire to impact the lives of children and families who are living in generational poverty and help them to succeed in life through education and mentorship and food security.
Salem Dream Center is about loving people exactly as they are without condition or expectation. We would like you to listen to a few of our families and what they have to say about the Salem Dream Center.
My name's Juan Torres, and I've been part of Salem Dream Center since the day it started. Before Dream Center came to our community, there was a great sense of fear and danger from everything from going to the store to going to school to just living in that community. There was a lot of gangs, a lot of violence, drug use. There wasn't anybody giving us positive mentorship into going and doing positive things. But when Salem Dream Center came to our community, all of that changed. They offered activities every weekend that came along with great mentors that would come down and talk to us, give us advice, give us support, and the tools to aspire greater things. And now that community has turned around for the better. You don't see teenagers joining gangs anymore. Now a lot of the teens are graduating high school and looking forward to going into college. I myself was the first in my family to attend college. This year I graduated with a degree in law enforcement, and I've always dreamed of being a police officer and be able to give back to those who need it.
There's something lovely in being told that even though you need, you still have the value to also give. And I just loved watching my 10-year-old and 11-year-old, and as he grew 12, go on these little lovely intrigues where he could sneak around and drop off presents and cookies at people's houses and understand that yes, they were also coming to our house, but he got to participate and give back. And it gave him such a heart for giving and for ministry.
When I tell you that Salem Dream Center changed our community, I truly mean it. Now, I'm a happy father of my son Omar, and I'm proud to raise him in that neighborhood. I feel safe raising him there and having him be with people who are great mentors and great support.
One of the fun things about having children is that this new little person in your life is the most precious thing you've ever seen. And to experience that as a parent is something that is unique, and the only thing that tops it is when someone else comes into your life and shares the same joy and looks at your child in that same way. And that's what we got from Dream Center, is that Craig and Renee and the other volunteers were just as invested in the success and the emotional safety of my children as I was. And I could just breathe a little bit better every Saturday, knowing that I was going to a place where my little people were cherished and adored and provided for.
Well, you've always had a heart for the community and for those that are struggling in many different areas in your community, because you're in a very unique side where people are struggling, and then you have other side that, people aren't struggling as much. I'm sure that all this has been birthed out of compassion, your relationship with Christ, and your own life experiences. Can you share with us what things in your journey in life that moved you into what you're doing today?
Sure. Well, growing up, I always liked to help people. Was just kind of I enjoyed that. About 25 years ago, I went through a pretty rough divorce, and my world was pretty shattered at the time. I'd lost a lot in the process, and for the first time in my life, I knew what it was like to be hungry and in need. And it was in that time that God reached to me, but I was also reaching to Him. Every day I was into my Bible, and I was doing SOAPs, scripture, observation, application, prayer. And one day I read two different books. I read in Job, and it's where Job gives his accounting of who he was. And he's talking about how people respect him. It's the only time he really has a recourse to this is who I am. And what inspired me was He starts off by saying everybody respected him. Everybody, when he walked by, they were quiet. But then he says the why, and it was because he helped the orphan, he helped the widow, those that were lost, he helped them. And I was like, wow, that's how Job survived. It was the character of him. That's something that the enemy could never take. He could never take his character. And I made this commitment, like, man, I've got to be that guy. If I'm going to survive this, I've got to be that. And then the next thing I read was Matthew 25, and it was the separation of the sheep and the goats, the last moment on earth. And, and here it's the same stuff. It's what Job lived, that Jesus is rewarding and saying, well done, good and faithful servant. And I went, well, I've got to really focus on this. I've got to be this. The next day I go to church, and Todd Gould, who I'd never heard preach, stood up and he preached, and he quoted those two scriptures and talked about his dream to start an outreach in our community. And I was almost jumping over the pews. It was obvious that God got a hold of my heart. He prepared me, and it's one of those. I don't want to say a cautionary tale. It's a good tale. If I wouldn't have been doing my soap and reading my Bible, I would have missed that opportunity. I would have gone to church that day and thought, oh, that's a great thing. I don't think I would have been, it probably still would have touched my heart because of who God created me to be, but not the impactful way that it did, because I journaled on it. And when I journaled, I literally wrote, God, if you give me an opportunity to do this, I will do it. And the only time I've ever done this, I signed my name and I dated it. So just know, you do that, God commits, he considers that a contract, and he's got the best lawyers. So yeah, so we started and we haven't stopped. We just continued to grow, continued to do more for families. And it was in that time when I was broken and reaching out to other people who were broken that I was healed. It's where God healed my heart and restored me and restored my life.
Well, that sounds like a powerful place to start. And you shared your heart, like coming from a place of brokenness, but then for the brokenness of others. I saw on the site that you are often quoted as saying that you hate charity. And here you are in a nonprofit organization, and you're serving those who can't, you get nothing out of it. They can't pay for it. And you're doing things, and that, obviously they couldn't earn or pay. But what do you mean by that? And how do you serve a community like this and hate charity? What's that all mean?
I guess let me say this, that I think charity is a Band-Aid on a systemic problem. I think, unfortunately, we enable people and we equip them to fail, not succeed, by handing them things, continually just handing them things. So the philosophy is this, Greg, if I see you standing on a corner and you're back here and you're not in Hawaii, and it's raining and you don't have a coat and you're cold, and I walk up and I go, hey, here's a coat. I don't know you. I may have just torn away the last thread of self-respect you have. Now, if I get to know you and I know about you and I know about your wife and I know about your kiddos and I know about your boys you've adopted and I know about you and you know about my kids and we've hung out and now I walk up to you on the same situation and I say, hey, Greg, I saw this coat. Dude, I had to get this for you. Now, instead of just warming your body, I warmed your heart. So everything we do is about relationship. Everything we do is about relationship, or we won't go down that path. But our model is this. It isn't what you take from society that helps you succeed. It's what you give of yourself. And that's what we instill in the kids and the adults. And for the majority of them, they accept that. Here at the Learning Center, if anybody comes to take a class, we're going to ask them, what are you going to teach? What are you going to teach? Because they have value. And I don't care if it's whittling a frog whistle out of a stick. They have value. And we want them to know that they're valuable. They don't have a bank account that makes their value. Who they are is valuable. So our teens, our youth and teens, they average over 7,000 hours of volunteering in the community. Wow. And a lot of it's here. A lot of it's at Walker Middle School, where it's in the community. But it's at other nonprofits, and the adults do the same thing. An instance is this: when we do food boxes, which we provide food in fairly big quantities right before Thanksgiving and Christmas when the kids are out of school because they live in food insecurity. If they don't have food and they can't get the free breakfast and lunch, they're not going to starve to death, but it creates a hardship in the home. It creates stress in the home. They're probably not going to eat well or healthy. So when we go and we put together the food on those 2 days, we deliver an average 53,000 pounds of food to homes.
Wow.
Once again, they're not coming to us. We're going to them. We're knocking on their door and we're delivering the food. And it's like, hey, they know us. We're walking in. We're loving on them. It's the teens and the young adults and the moms and dads who put the food together primarily. They volunteer. Even though it's going to be coming to their own home, they put it together. Yesterday, we were distributing food out of our learning center because of the restrictions in the state, so we can't really go to their homes. So they're coming to us. But some of the moms and teens came and helped put the food together. Then they came in and they cleaned the center afterwards. We didn't ask any of them to do it. That's the model. They know that that gives them worth. Our community garden that we have here is pristine because they maintain it.
Wow.
So that's the difference, is they give back. They know that they're part of the solution. It's not a handout.
Do you find that it's a challenge for some who would just automatically want to come in and operate the old way of getting the handouts versus giving them the dignity of I don't really want to say work, but maybe work or contribution?
It's actually pretty rare with the families. We have the biggest challenge with new volunteers. They want to just do it and take care of people. They want to go and clean the bathroom, and I'm like, no, Maria will clean the bathroom. She wants to do that. You may think it's a disgusting thing, and you're sacrificing for her. That will build her up, that she is doing something, and she's sacrificing for you. And so it's mostly the volunteers. It's like, no, don't do that. Don't go mow the yard. Let the families know, hey, the yard needs to be mowed. One of them will step up. You don't need to ask one, just go, the yard needs mowed, if you even need to point it out. So the hardest part is with the volunteers. And we've had staff that we've hired, and it's been a battle. It's like, no, I know we're paying you, but we're paying you to have a relationship with them and empowering them by letting them know they have value. And it's not us being lazy. And we all, it's like, we will not. Another thing that's really important with outreach, that I feel anyway, is anytime somebody offers us something, I don't care if it's food, I don't care if it's clothing, somebody that we're serving, I will not refuse it. Because if I refuse it, I'm saying I'm better than you.
Wow.
So we will take it. And to be honest, the majority of the families that we have in this community, they're Hispanic, and I love Mexican food. So that's not really too much of a
Yeah. Oh, wow. What a great shift.
It reminds me of a quote Worsby says, where ministry begins when loving channels meet human needs for his glory. And I think that everything is birthed out of relationship. And I love the uniqueness of what you're doing, because it is relationship in the community. You're meeting human needs, but also when you're meeting those needs and those relationships are there, there's permission given, right, to speak into their lives, and also discipleship. And that's what you're doing. You're not just handing something out. What you're doing is, through this relationship, we know that there's a need, we're helping you, but there's a way to give back also. And I think that's very important. I think we miss that. I think a lot of organizations, they give a box or they do something, and it's almost like, I'm doing you a favor. Does that make sense?
It does. And that's what I don't like.
Quite a bit. Tell us about the community you're ministering in right now, a little bit more. You've shared a little bit, and how during these times, how you had to reposition yourself to meet their needs. I know that you were going in one direction, kind of your guys's mantra, this is how we do things, ministry, you had your own systems in place. But with everything that's happened in the world today, with the shutdowns and everything, you had to reposition yourself. And some organizations decided to close their doors and just not. But you decided to keep your doors open and reposition yourself. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, well, with that, what we did was we did it fairly quickly. We looked at what we've always been really focused on what people want. We have an advisory committee that's made up of Dream Center teens and young adults and moms and dads, because we want them to say what they need, not us telling them what they need. So that put us in a very strategic position to quickly, as a very wise man once said, pivot. I said shift gears, and Craig told me you just pivoted. So what we did was instead of having, it's like, what are the needs? Well, food was a dramatic need. So we reallocated budget that was spent for education, where we're going to have kids coming into the center, and where we're going to be doing our youth activities on Saturday, where we use middle school. We started using those to buy food so that we could provide food to the families. And instead of us going to them, we did that first, and then it's like, this is like not, we got to be more careful. So we set up a safe way for them to come and pick up food. So we started doing that. We also recognized that we couldn't have teens and kids in our center to be mentored other than one-on-one, which is happening right now. But yet that was going to be dramatic, because the virtual education, if the parent is not able to help their kids, which I know parents that have college degrees that are struggling right now to help their kids with education, myself included, we started a virtual mentorship as well as a one-on-one mentorship that is in a very safe environment. We also recognized in asking the families, how can we help you, that our families were spending between $100 to $175 on laundry. So Dream Center has a laundry. We opened it up on a scheduled basis. Before that, if a family, there was a rotation, people who came for classes could bring their laundry, and they could do their laundry. And we knew it was a help, but we didn't realize it was $175 help. So we pivoted that. We also started reaching out to the elderly and those that have at-risk lifestyles, kids and stuff that can't go shopping, are afraid to go shopping. And so we deliver food to them, and we'll go shopping for them. And then probably the most exciting, we started going out into the neighborhoods in a safe way and just checking on people and making sure that they knew they weren't alone, making sure that they felt okay, identifying what their needs were. We've been doing a lot of surveys, more than we ever have, on what could help you right now. What do you need? And because if we're doing something and it's not helpful, we're going to stop it. We're going to pivot once again. So we've been doing that. Our community garden, we have a schedule so that families can come in and maintain their garden, but yet we maintain what the governor said we can do in respect to social distancing. And yet, we're not going to shut down. We're not going to do everything virtual, because relationship is everything. And if right now, if the three of us and anybody else that was listening were sitting across from each other, it would be a lot warmer conversation. This is great because this is what we have to do, but it'd be a lot warmer conversation. So we're still going to do everything we can to be relational and safe. I will say that I believe that each of us has if we choose to receive it, the anointing of Jesus Christ. And I mean, I can remember when I started doing homeless outreach and going into homeless camps, and people telling me I was going to get this disease and I was going to get that disease and I was going to get, and I'm like, Jesus touched lepers. I think I'm going to be okay. And in all those years, not once did anything happen. And I even, as I said, when people offer me something, I take it, including food coming out of homeless camps. Now the salmon was a little scary. Because there's no refrigerators there, but nonetheless, nothing happened. So I think we need to be wise. I don't think we need to live in fear. Fear isn't faith, but I think we need to be wise, and we are being wise.
So you guys come and you are bringing light into a dark time, and you're probably ministering to people who are really vulnerable to the fear that is continuously promoted through media or through conversation. you're confronting that with hope. It sounds like to me. I wonder, as you do that, like what kind of impact do you see that having directly, like in the faith and the hope, the soul of the people you're ministering to, not just the physical, but that emotional level or the soul level?
It definitely is. We've had more people talk to us about Jesus Christ since we started doing this, and we're, for the most part, non-proselytizing, other than Easter, and we let everybody know this is what we're doing. We don't want to be disrespectful. If you don't have to listen to the story. If you want to come in and just decorate Easter eggs and get candy and roll, totally cool. Our summer camps, we're the same way. It's like, hey, we're going to talk about Jesus. Otherwise, and the only funds we use for those things come directly from churches, because we want to be respectful for people who don't have the same belief, because we're not about forcing. We don't think we need to force what we believe on anyone. But we've had more people coming and asking, people sending messages. A good example, I mentioned the Easter. So we don't do Easter egg hunts because I see kids sad and unhappy at Easter Easter egg hunt because they didn't get the special egg. They didn't get enough eggs. There's somebody else. So what we do is we boil eggs, thousands of eggs, and the kids come in and they get to decorate eggs, which is something these kiddos don't do in their homes. And then they get to take that home and it's food. And well, this year we couldn't do that because of the restrictions. So what we did is we provided everybody with eggs, with the dye, with the vinegar, with instructions on what to do, and then we gave those out. Well, we got all kinds of families saying that the kids missed the story, and it really let us know that little story about hey, this is why we're celebrating Easter. It mattered.
Yeah, I think one of the biggest things is, like we mentioned earlier, is when you're a light, you're meeting the needs of the people, right? People want to know how much you care before they want to know how much you know. Once they know how much you care, then they want to know what you know. And
Right.
I think that's kind of you guys' approach, right? As in with the Easter eggs, everything, it's all about, building those, relationships. What are some of the key things that you feel that needs that you guys have, as a ministry, or maybe a struggle that you guys have during this time?
I mean, the obvious, and I'm sure it's with every nonprofit, funding. I mean, there's so much uncertainty in the world that our funding is down, and yet we're spending more to try to bring a sense of security and hope into families' homes. Every week we're going out and we're buying thousands and thousands of dollars of milk and eggs and meat and where we can find it, and produce and things like that. So the funding is a huge challenge for us. We're having different groups and organizations, even some churches are starting to donate, which is helping. So I mean, that would probably be the biggest one. It's navigating a place where we can't go. Like, we know that this child is struggling, and one of our key focuses has shifted this last year to kids that are depressed and living in self-isolation. And we literally had just remodeled a big part of the learning center so that kids could come and we could do social gaming. And instead of them sitting in their bedroom or their basement or whatever and doing gaming, they could do it here, as well as movie nights and game nights. So we know these kiddos are struggling, and we aren't able to really have that physical contact. We're like, we want to. We're going to their houses and we're, staying on the sidewalk and we're talking with them, but to be able to sit and have a hamburger with them and then play a video game with them, because it's then that they break down the wall and they start talking to you. Our philosophy of mentorship is not sitting across the table unless there's food between you. It's going to a baseball game, a football game, a play, a movie, shopping, going to get your nails done. It's doing stuff like that. That's our model of mentorship. And then giving the child, earning the authority and the permission, I guess is a better word, the permission to speak into somebody's life by building a relationship with them and letting them know they matter.
Mm.
You know, with everything that's going on, you're hearing all these different things about the new normal and how the landscape's going to change. There's going to be more online stuff, and I'm sure there is. But at the same time, you know, I have a belief, and you could chime in on this, is that we can't lose the human connection. That's important. I don't think that's going to go away. There's going to be, we're designed that way, we're wired that way. And so, with everything that's going on, I mean, how do you see things playing out for the future when it comes to the things that we do in ministry?
You know, there's so much uncertainty, but there's so much fear, and I'm not big on fear. I choose faith and hope over fear. And anyway, so I think it's going to be an individual choice to be a big, we can become resigned that this is it. Our meetings are going to be Zoom. We're going to do everything virtually. Or we can step out and be the difference, not make a difference, be the difference. Step out. I mean, right now it's like, so people are feeling isolated. They're feeling alone in their homes and whatever else. Well, every Christmas morning, Dream Center does something called Operation Sneaky Elf. We collect cookies, Christmas cookies, thousands and thousands and tens of thousands of cookies. And then we bag those up, and on Christmas morning at 3:30 in the morning, we do Operation Sneaky Elf, and we sneak through the community and we put bags of cookies on people's doors with a note saying, "Merry Christmas, you are loved." And the last 4 years, we've done every single door in this community, and we've gone beyond over 1,400 dozen cookies. Think about your neighborhood. What if you put together a little bag and you just put a note in it, and you put, a store-bought, since, people are justifiably concerned about things, a store-bought bag, a candy, cookies, whatever, and you just snuck through your neighborhood and you put them on people's doors? What impact would that have? Because I'll tell you that our putting cookies on doors, we've heard that a woman who was going to take her own life that day because she felt alone. And she hated Christmas because nobody cared about her. And she opened her door on Christmas morning, as she says, her last day on this earth, to read her last paper, drink her last cup of coffee. And there was this bright red bag with homemade cookies and a note saying, "Merry Christmas, you were loved." And she said she knew in that moment she wasn't alone, and she was going to stay on this earth. And to this day, I know her. She lives in this community. She says that it's her favorite Christmas memory because it's the day that she was saved. Sorry. We hear stories of, so what could you do in your community? We don't have to, we can be safe, but we can still have relationship. It may be a little bit different, but we can still do that. And I know I didn't really answer your question. We're going to honor the authorities above us, but we're going to live out our faith in a tangible way. And we're going to continue to impact lives of children by being there for them and with them.
I feel with everything that's going on, the keys are with people that are struggling at home to help them get through the challenges they're facing in the midst of today's trials.
Turn off the news.
Amen.
There's so much fear mongering, and there's so much negativity. And it's like, be educated, but you need to be wise. Don't just be staring at it in gloom and doom. Thinking about Paul being in prison. He didn't look at the doom and the gloom. He looked at, he didn't look at the bars. He looked beyond the bars. And we need to look beyond the bars and step beyond the bars. Go out and get some fresh air. Plant a garden in your backyard. If you're afraid to go into a hardware store, they'll come out to your car now. Talking about how cool is that? Do some things that are productive and creative, but stop watching the news. I do snippets, and I'm very careful about what sources I'm using. And even with those, it's like, which is the truth? Um, you know, just as with my life, when I was struggling, it was when I started helping others that I was healed and restored. Look at who you can help. Is there somebody elderly in your community, in your neighborhood, who, when you go to the grocery store, you could call and say, hey, I'm going to the grocery store. Can I pick you anything up? I'm going to the P.O. box. I'm going to the post office. Can I drop off mail, pick up mail? What can I do for you? Something as simple as that, and I'll leave it on your door. You know, you're justifiably afraid. I'll leave it on your door. Checking in on people. You know, doing things for others is going to take our focus off of, oh, woe me.
That is so true. I find myself when I'm serving others, it takes my mind off of my situation because I'm pouring myself out, to help somebody else. I know that, I hear this thing on the news and all over the place that, we're all in the same boat. And I beg to differ. We're all in the same storm, but we're all
Correct.
in different boats, right? Different situations. And sometimes when we're in that boat, it feels like the storm is heavy, like where it's just crashing in. And a lot of times we don't know what to do, where the life, rafts are. We don't know, who's there to help us. And I believe that it's important for us to reach out to people. We need that human connection, right? If that's a relative, if it's a pastor, if it's through Zoom, whatever it is, to really encourage us, because there is so much fear out there. I mean, everything you turn on is it intention really to push us towards fear, if you really think about it. And I look at fear as a 4-letter cuss word. I really do. That keeps us back from really what we should be doing. It puts things in our mind that hold us back from taking the steps that we need to take. And I don't know about you, but without me having those people around me and really pointing me to the perspective, as in God's perspective about things, that He has things handled, that He's in control, that He's in charge, He's our provider. Our economy here isn't God's economy; it's a whole different economy, and He has us taken care of. It's so easy to go the other way when we don't have that in our life. I know that that's what you guys are doing as a Dream Center, is as you guys are meeting people's needs in those relationships, you guys are able to be that encouragement, be that life raft, come alongside them and speak, those encouraging things to them. Share a story of something just recently on the front lines of maybe somebody in the community that you guys been able to come alongside.
I will. And one thing that I'm sure I read this, but just following up on what you said first, I think there's a lot of people that are so afraid of dying that they're not living.
Okay.
We need to live. We need to move on. We need to succeed and prosper in whatever way we can. Just as I think it was pretty much everywhere in the world, and no, I still don't understand the why, but with the shortage of toilet paper, it was huge in this community, and the majority of our families, as I said, they're living, in very modest, if not poverty. They didn't have the money to go and hoard anything. They didn't have the ability to drive around and try and find toilet paper. And so it was a huge, huge challenge. And it just broke my wife Renee's heart, who, she runs Dream Center with me. And one morning I woke up and it was like 6 o'clock in the morning. She was gone. And I'm like, where'd she go? And so I text her and she said, I'm standing in line to get toilet paper. And, I'm going to plead that I was tired, not just ignorant. And I said, we have toilet paper. We're fine. She goes, yeah, but the families don't. So she went to like 19 stores that day, stood in line at all of them and kept going. And so she got toilet paper and she said, we need to go now and we need to go to some houses because the moms are coming to me and they're like in tears about this. So, we're going, and it was better than we deliver Christmas presents to families and kids. They were more excited about toilet paper. And there was one family that we walked up to, and so they have 3 teen girls and a couple of boys, and then they have a special needs little guy, JP. and he is one of those that he's at risk. So this family is very careful. And we walked up, and we also had milk because that was another thing we were struggling with. And so Urban Grange Coffee, a local coffee shop, they went and ordered a bunch of milk through their source and hooked us up. So we're going door to door delivering milk and toilet paper. And we got to this one house and we handed them the milk and they're like, oh, thank you. And then we go and we pull out like a little 4-pack of toilet paper and go, and we got you some toilet paper. And Jocelyn, who's 14, she starts jumping up and down. And all of a sudden she starts crying and they're tears of joy. And I looked at her and I went, and I said something to the effect of, wow, you know, I knew that I knew this stuff was good, but I didn't know it was that good. And she said, she walked up and tears running down her face. She says, Craig, we were cutting up our t-shirts because we didn't have anything to use. And it still breaks my heart that a teenage girl, a little girl, had to go through that indignity here in the United States, you know? And it was like, you know, it reminded me as I was thinking about it, you know, my dad telling me the story way back when sitting on the beach about the little boy throwing the starfish out into the water because they're covering the shore, and a guy coming up and going, you'll never make a difference. And he throws out and he goes, I made a difference to that one. And it's like just a roll of toilet paper can make a difference in a life. Just a gallon of milk, just a carton of eggs, and can change somebody's perspective. And every day before we do anything, we always have the same prayer, and it's that we become invisible, and all they see is Jesus Christ's love. That's all these people see. Even though we're not going to tell them that that's what they see, and I believe in the power of that. And that little girl, she saw it. Her whole family did. And we're still desperate for toilet paper, by the way. Even though it's in the stores, it isn't in the stores here because they're isolated. It goes right away because it's in a community and they can't drive for 10 miles or 5 miles to find it. So.
Hey, we're running into the same thing here in Hawaii. I got 7 kids and I'm trying to figure out where to get toilet paper.
Well, apparently what we've learned is socks and t-shirts, which is a sad thing. But you know what we did? We then had a clothing drive and laundered all the laundry, and then we did a socially safe where all the tables were 12 feet apart, and put chalk lines everywhere. And we opened it up, come get clothes, because we found out a lot of them needed clothes and they ruined clothes.
How people can connect with you if they want to get involved, maybe they're in the Salem area or they want to support you, or just even pray for your ministry. How can people get a hold of you?
Well, first of all, we love playing with others. We love playing with other organizations and groups. We believe there's strength in numbers, and we're non-competitive. We are in competition. We're in competition with poverty and hunger and gangs and violence, but not with other organizations. So we try to support them, just so you know. So our Facebook page, it's a good way to follow the current events of what we're doing. We're so busy, we're not posting quite as much as we normally would. And so that's a good place. I'll be honest, we need volunteers that are healthy volunteers who aren't afraid. The majority of our volunteers were at-risk people. They're people that have that demographic that have had cancer in the last 2 years, and or they're on an autoimmune problem and things like that. So we need young, vibrant volunteers to help with the distribution of food and such, all that kind of stuff. Financial support is huge. Doing food drives, but specific food drives. Our biggest things that we need is flour, corn mesa, and rice and beans, all dried, because that we can distribute. Doing a broad spectrum stuff, it's easier just to go, hey, we're going to do 1 or 2. If you're a church or an organization, we're going to do rice and we're going to do pinto beans, or we're going to that can have an impact. People go into our website, going and looking at our videos. That gives a good idea of who we are and what we're about. Videos from the edge. Where we are, it's called the Edgewater District. And even though now 41% of our kiddos come from beyond Edgewater, a long time ago, when we took on, I think it was was it you two that did the red campaign?
Mhm.
We kind of plagiarized that, and so we did the edge water. And this is the edge where God's love is pushing back at darkness. And we've seen that. This community is transformed from having the highest crime rate. The juvenile crime rate now is 32% lower than any community in the state of Oregon with the same demographic. Walker Middle School, where it was struggling and had an academic achievement of 3, and now is an 8, and the average is 6. It's a community where people want to live, and we truly are pushing back, not because it's us, but because of the one who comes with us.
Yeah.
And that impact that people are coming to know they have value and that they mean something and that there's more in life, and breaking starvation mentality.
Yeah, that's great. So, what is the web address if someone wants to get a hold of you that they could go to? Yeah, is there a way? Is there a phone number or anything else?
Certainly.
You know.
Yeah, the website is salemdreamcenter.org. And on there, you're going to see there's a serve page where you can go and you can check off what you want to do. And even for the future, like, hey, when this breaks, I want to be there on a Saturday and I want to be in one of the open gyms, or I want to feed kids, food or whatever. There's also a give, which would be salemdreamcenter.org/give if you just want to get there quick. And that'll give you an opportunity to help support us and invest in the success and hope of the families.
Yeah. Well, Craig, thank you so much for joining our show. Thank you for sharing with us and what you're doing in the Salem community and Edgewater and beyond. And so we're so glad to have you, and keep up the good work. And we'll be praying for your ministry. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for the opportunity, guys. It's been great.
I want to thank you guys for joining us on Perspective as we were doing today's show, that the struggle is real. There's a few things that we can take out of this show. One is how it's important for us to reposition ourselves as we're going through struggles or as situations change in life. We also learn as we go through those trials or those storms, and no matter what boat that we're in, that we begin to recognize some things. One is to separate ourselves from those things that are going to cause fear and chaos in our life. Two is that we begin to surround ourselves with people that are going to encourage us and point us towards the right perspective, God's perspective in the situations that we face. And another thing that we learn is it's important as we're going through things to serve others, if it's our friends, if it's our neighbors, if it's our community. Because as we serve others, it takes our minds off our own issues, and we begin to get through those issues by really meeting someone else's needs. So I want to thank you guys again for joining us, and please tune in a few weeks with us as we continue to bring perspective. You can find us at Facebook at facebook.com/Interstate TV, or on YouTube at Perspective ITV. Thank you very much.